Welcome to the Spartan Standard Podcast, sponsored by Spartan Cafe, Main Street's gateway to Wall Street. I'm your host, Mark R. Moore, CEO and creator of Spartan Cafe. Today, at long last, I'm joined by a very, very great friend, Mr. Arthur J. Rutledge, best-selling author, speaker, coach, model, New York City powerhouse, power player, and so much more to so many, both nationally and internationally, and that's not exaggeration. Art, hello. So good to have you here finally. We got you on the podcast, and I couldn't wait. As a matter of fact, when I first thought about starting this series, I wanted you to be the first guest.
Man, that's right. I appreciate you.
Art and I go back many, many years, and I'm really grateful that he's here. He's doing a lot of amazing things, so I can't wait for you guys to meet him. And I can guarantee that we're going to be fulfilled. We're going to feel energized and inspired. And with that, no pressure.
Pressure.
Nice that you're here. Tell us a little about yourself. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you got going on.
Hey, you got the best parts of it, I think, already. I'm Arthur J. Rutledge. The J is for Jeffrey. For those that I think out of all the interviews I've done, I haven't put what that was. Born and raised Detroit, Michigan. Lived now in New York for almost 25 years after a decision with the help of a friend who is or what was the smartest kid in my school at one point. And he says, yeah, this is a design that I set for myself, but I see it for you. And that design told me that I can travel the world, that I can meet new people, and I can grow. And that was the modeling industry, which at that time had a lot of things set up or already in place for me or the people who are coming into it to either excel or decrease as soon as you come through the door. And so I had all these rules and it put me in a good place because I had already done so much in my life that was focused around being the best person I could be. I didn't know at that time what that was. I just knew what I loved, and I gravitated towards the people who put me in the places to, whether I liked it or not, that put me in a place where I can excel even before I got to things that would eventually turn out to be a lot rougher, even in the beginning stages. Did a few businesses, one before I moved to New York,
Well,
a
hold on a
few
second.
after.
Hold on a second, Art. Before we get to that, because we got a lot to cover. As I
Yeah,
mentioned in
yeah.
the intro, I mean, you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a coach, you were a model. I guess you could call yourself a model still. You're out there, you're doing so much. So let's start at the begin. Let's not at the beginning, but you brought up the modeling thing. So talk a little bit about that. You talked a little bit about how you got into it,
Okay. Uh,
and in any way you wish, talk about that experience a little bit, both in terms of being a model, and then did it do anything for you later on, and help you lead you into any direction that you've gone so far.
yeah, all of encompassing in the direction that put me in a place to where you all will know me and Mark knows me as a best-selling author, Barnes& and Nobles and Amazon best-selling author, is the stories. And we go through so much pain sometimes we forget the stories.
I was there for some of those stories, but go ahead.
And you were there for some of those stories. So I got here after I made that decision. It wasn't a long thought out decision. It was presented to me 6 months before I ended up landing on this island. And it was the decision that I had made, a promise that I made to the child, Arthur, Jeffrey, David, actually, another initial, David Rutledge, years ago, that I wanted to see the world. And I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know. I knew the world was there. I knew it was more than my neighborhood, more than my area, more than my city. And I had already been to quite a lot of cities in just exploring what that looked like, whether it was Cleveland or, places in the area of Chicago, whatever that was in the area. By the time I just made a decision, I had already made the decision. I just had to remember that I made the decision.
Okay. All right.
And then Vaughn Laurie, great friend. I always give him a shout out. The owner of 360 magazine, lifestyle magazine, which I have a great article in there. Right before I put the 11 Pillars of Confidence out. And I went to middle school with him. He was the smartest kid in the school. Ended up graduating top of his class in Cornell University. And he just, he had a brain switch. He said, I don't want to work in corporate. He started making upper six-figure salary. And he said, this is not me. He made a pivot.
Yeah.
So we call it pivot now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I made a pivot. I was working doing car sales. I was very successful at that. One of the top
This is
earners.
before modeling.
Yeah, this before mine.
Okay.
All led up to it.
Okay.
But you asked, but those decisions,
Okay. All right.
it just came up to the decision and the commitment, knowing what I wanted and staying true to who I was in my heart. By the time I did that, by the time Vaughn did that, we were in a place where I think we just knew that our lives needed to have a change. And we didn't want to satisfy. We didn't want to just be satisfied or stay in a place of complacency. And we did that simultaneously. And his courage a year later turned into a question to me about me doing the same. And that question that was already a commitment in my heart was after coming here, after seeing what was here and what I was capable of doing. I know I had done something similar before, some modeling here and there in Detroit. That was a decision that I made. And when I landed, they say, what's the saying? Plymouth Rock didn't land on me. I landed on Plymouth Rock.
Plymouth Rock
If
landed
that's
on me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
landed. Yeah. I mean, I reversed it. I
Yeah. Yeah.
reversed
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
because we have to always remember we are the bigger rock.
Yeah.
We're the
Yeah.
ones
Yeah.
that have the fortitude of every material that's in the rock. We're made up of that type of grit if we truly want it. And then I got an agency. Like I didn't have an agency, which is maybe not the smartest thing. I
Okay.
probably should have came and visited. Second time I ever came to New York was after that invite. I made a decision. I needed good pictures. I shot with some of the top photographers in New York City. That was a rushed 4-day weekend, long
Yeah.
weekend. And I got back and I had to get back to work. But when I made my mind up, I just made my mind up. Cortez, we hear the story of this brave soldier that burnt all
Burn
his
the
ships
ships.
because burned those ships. So none of the soldiers could feel like they were overwhelmed.
So we're
Even God.
talking about just so that we don't gloss over what you just said, because that's very powerful. It's kind of like don't have a plan B, right?
I think a light plan B, but don't think that that's the plan that you should result to. I think it's plan B's in the moment. Like where innovation
So
comes in, where creativity comes in, where you're just stuck and you have to figure it out.
making
But put yourself
adjustments.
in a place. Don't jump the gun and think you're gonna have to have a plan B, a plan C, a plan. No, go
Just make
with
adjustments. Yeah.
the passion of your heart. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Because people take away from themselves.
Yeah. You have to adapt and adjust, and then you have to react. And then
And you have to get good at that.
that's
And
right.
that's why you don't have really a plan B or plan C
Yeah.
on things. I mean, so lightly, yeah. Like for me, I know this, and this is what I give to people in the confidence realm and things of that nature. I had to see myself so vividly in the space I was that was the space that I was. I wasn't in the reality of the things that could be all the setbacks.
So you created your own reality.
I created my own reality around the thing that I wanted most.
And so you
I said, and I told myself, and before you was about to say that, I also said, I'm going to give this 5 to 6 years. That means that I wasn't planning on coming back to Detroit.
Yeah, yeah. 5, 6 years. Yeah, yeah.
No matter if it,
You were
I didn't know
committed
whether it
to it.
worked.
You're gonna succeed. And that's just that, right?
That was it. I gave myself enough time to be really bad.
I've never heard it put that way. I gave myself time to be really bad. That is
And it's
phenomenal.
okay.
That's one of the
But
best things I've ever
because I
heard.
said that to myself, right? Because I said
Yeah,
it to myself,
yeah,
I was programming my mind that it could get really rough.
yeah, yeah,
And I didn't know, I mean, salt the wound, right?
for sure.
Vaughn, 6 months after I moved here, decided he wanted to move to LA. So I didn't have a place after that first 6 months.
But you got an agent pretty quickly.
I got an agent right away.
Yeah. Wow.
The timing of what that looked like for me was God's plan. Oh, that's how I know that, I was guided in a divine type of way that pulled me towards what I ultimately wanted for myself. And when I got there, I went around and I had some good agencies that liked me, but at that time they weren't taking same type.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know what you mean. For
So
sure.
at that time was, I don't want to, say too much about what that was. A lot of people know
The
what that
people who
looks
know
like
the
that
industry
time.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I was, Ford liked me, just had somebody who was already making money for him on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I wasn't, on that side of it. And then finally, one of the last trips I was out all for 2 days walking around New York. At that time, you could go to casting calls. They would have casting calls. And
Yeah,
now they don't have
that's right.
casting calls for you just to kind of go in on Monday or Wednesday or on a Tuesday every week or something like that. Now it's probably a saturation. We felt like it was back then too. Never
Yeah,
to,
it
never,
was still competitive, highly competitive, but it was you had a chance though
yeah.
to kind of grind it out. You knew on this day you can create a schedule. All right, I'm doing this.
Yep. Nevertheless, and my plan B, when I talk about lighter plans of plan B and plan C, it was things that it wasn't something that would alter me from the plan A. It was things I picked up small things to help support me to excel at the plan A. Those were my plan Bs and my plan C. For example, I went out and I said, well, I want to be an international model. So I should know all the places that I can get represented as a model. So it was this book. I was great at that time. And this was
Yeah,
before Google, before you can Google it. Went to the library or went
that's
to a
right.
bookstore and asked, do you have a book of agencies? And they did. And it was pint size. It
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
then it's not like the whole, like the 10 commandments on each arm, weighing tons. It was light and it had all the agencies from all the countries around the world
So
in it.
you did the work too, though. I mean, because I'm listening to you. First, clearly, you had a lot of faith. You were committed. You believed. You knew, but you didn't just say I want it, and then you sat back and said, "All right, well, I'm waiting for for God to bring it to me." You kind of went out there and you did research. In other words, you were. Here's the way I'm taking what you're saying. You were living the life of the life you wanted.
That's right.
And you went out.
I had to keep in a direction. I had to make a routine. Like that should always be our plan B and plan C. It shouldn't be the alternative
Yeah,
of or despite how I'm going to get along with plan A. It should be the preparation. The preparation. And again, I mentioned that I was capable. I knew I was capable because I had been in situations where, I had to practice getting better at what at now we talk about awareness, but had to get good at practicing raising my awareness around certain things, and my intentionality had to be solid. The way that I showed myself that intentionality was to do these other things. Another thing was I had always saw myself speaking other languages.
yeah.
Bought
Now we
I
get
bought
to it. Yeah.
six I bought 6 tapes and books that had different languages that I was starting to look into before I even moved to New York. When I had it in my head and I wanted all the facets. I had to build the vision board of what that was in my head. I mean, some people were going to Jim Rohn and all those great,
Sure.
Zig Zig and all those, where they knew how to build a vision board. I didn't. I did it the ghetto way, but I had great imagination about what that could be for me, and I was just excited about it. Just excited about it. I just connected it to what I decided I wanted to be. And I said, this is gonna be something really good. And then the third thing was, and I'll say this like I said, is I told everybody. It wasn't a secret. I wasn't
You went for it. You burned the ships. You put
I
it out
burned it.
there.
I didn't care. I wanted people to say you couldn't.
You wanted the accountability. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. You
wanted
wanted that
the
fire.
accountability to
Yeah.
be in place because, like I said, I had owned a business. It taught me a lot of things, but it was 3 years of more hard than good because of the holes in the how I saw myself and in the things that I was just ignorant to. And that's always going to happen. You're going to have more of those until you build out the other thing. But the thing is, if you could just putting the pieces together, get as prepared as you can. Like I said, 6 months, I made that decision. He asked me in the summer. I went to visit at the end of summer to shoot with the photographers. I decided if those pictures were, I was preparing. Those are plan B, right? I knew
What you needed to
just
do.
from the things I saw, the things I read, the experiences that and other people I had. We know Kia,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
play
absolutely.
sister. She
Absolutely.
she went she had did the whole thing. She was coming back every summer back and forth, from the age of 15, 16, 17. She had agencies, so I built on the things that I did here and the things that I experienced. And I just, did the best preparation of what we call BCD, whatever ideas, plans to start getting in that. But I knew that I needed better pictures than I had in my space. And that was like, again, a plan B and a plan C. Those were the things that reinforced. So when I did get there, the agency that I did end up with, Boss Model Management, which has a sordid history of his own. It was in London and South Africa and in here in New York City. And they were known for having the best male models. Not saying I was the best. Well, maybe I
Embrace
had
that.
I had some
Embrace that.
skills.
I mean,
I had some skills. I had
embrace
some
that.
skills. But so I was surrounded by a lot of good talent from around the world that were coming in there by way of that. And because I did my plan B and plan C before my plan A, I got the result that reinforced my plan A. They helped me not to want to turn around and run back to what most people's plan B or plan C
So
is.
some of these results, right? So you've traveled the world. Now, talk about some of the places. I mean, you don't have to get into too much detail, but so where have you been? Like, what type of work were you doing as a model, and where have you traveled? What languages you speak? I mean, I know what you
Wow.
speak, but the audience is going to want to know. Wait a second, what you mean you taught yourself? How many languages?
Two languages, and I tell people, if you catch me at the right time, I mean, yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't get as much practice as I had from living in those places,
Well, let me
but
guess. Let me guess.
I
Okay,
had the advantage though.
so just from my own experiences with you, and so it's not really a guess, right? So obviously English, Italian.
No, no. Oh,
I've heard you
English, no.
speak Italian though. I've been out with you.
Italian,
Wait a second. I've been
Italian.
out with you, and I've heard you speak more than "Hi, how are you?" and "Where do you live?" or "My name is."
Yeah,
I've heard you
yeah,
speak it.
yeah.
Swedish, clearly. I know you speak Swedish.
Swedish,
And you have to tell me the rest.
and that's it too. I mean, obviously, we can count our own language, and it does count as that's three, right?
It's a tough language, man. English is hard.
And I thought that I was gonna go to other places where I could stay long enough. I didn't know what that was, but what happened was the first place that I went, I stayed here for a year after I got here, found another place after my friend left, which was a friend of his. That was the first time I was uptown. And then, but I didn't want to stay here for long. My vision said that I need to get to Europe. And I found out everything that I didn't know about going to Europe or going to another place. So again, I was doing the same method, same routine. I was training myself how to get important pieces of information, not like what we take in on social media and all the things bombard our
Well,
sense
we
of
didn't really
beings.
have social media the time that you're talking about. Social media wasn't really a thing like it is now.
2000, yeah, 2000. I had already, in the summertime, it was some agencies that came and scouted models in our agency, and it was out of three of them, two of them liked me. Uh, I thought that that was going to work itself out. And then I was like, okay, now I need to start preparing. Now I need to start saving. Now I need to get the ticket. And I found out that they weren't going to fly me. They weren't going to get me there. I said, it's up to me. If it was to be,
Interesting.
we know that saying is up to
How
me.
many people would have stopped right there?
They
That's
definitely
interesting that you
wouldn't have. I think the programming that's in place with how we deal with our lives is contingency ideals that don't support the strength of the dream that we have for ourselves. It's like, you have a table, it has four legs to it. The table is made of steel, but the legs are made of tin. Eventually, it's going to topple. And so our dreams are so heavy, but we're not reinforcing it. And so we go with the contingency plans
so you're talking
that
about
that
foundation.
slow us down.
Talking about foundation.
Foundation.
So okay,
Everything starts with that. And so I think when you step away from foundational principles, and these are just principles, let's just put it under the title principles, the ones that you're not going to give to anybody or not let anybody take from
your
you.
principles. Okay. Right.
Yeah. And the principles that we all
So okay, yeah, but
get to build, that we get
you're
to
saying
build. Yeah.
principles, but another person might take it in the context of they're not going to fly me, but I still want to go to Europe. A person might take that idea of having your own principles and misinterpret that to mean, well, if they're not going to fly me, then forget it,
Yeah.
and
Of
then and
course.
then and then
And
just give
go ahead,
up
go ahead.
on that idea of going to Europe.
Oh, 100%. But when I talk about principles and principles, listen, we always have a mix up of definition
Right. This is
when it
why I'm
comes to
bringing it up.
words.
Right.
So principle is being in integrity with yourself and knowing. Somebody gave me the definition of one of my mentors years ago gave me the definition of commitment, doing the thing that you say you're going to do long after the emotion or feelings that were involved with have passed.
Well, then that commitment really, the only way to do that, though, I think, and I would like to hear what you think about this, but the only way to do that is to have some conviction about your commitment.
Hmm.
Because if you
You
don't,
say that a lot, and I love when you say that. Like that's a lot of people. I have this quote. Uh, Outer results come from inner commitments. But I'm thinking of changing that to outer results should come from inner convictions. Because the way if you listen, we know what a conviction is. We know that nobody can talk you out of it, and we've all been
you,
in that place.
it's, it's in your bone marrow, right?
Yeah,
It's a part
I
of
would.
every cell. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, yes, in every part. I would say probably the difference, probably, and we have to kind of give some direction on the commitment and the conviction side of it. I think the commitment is something that we're not used to following through with. I mean, when I think of New Year's resolutions, I always use an
Oh,
example.
that's such a great one.
I
Yeah.
mean, 80% of people are not following through, not even halfway through what that is. I don't think that you need, I don't think is a lack of conviction, or I don't think you need to be convicted on things that are lighter in qualities in a person. I think you need the conviction for the things that will build a most amount of character that helps you step into your belief. So, for example, I might say for a New Year's resolution or any type of thing for myself, I might write 5 things. I might not get 5 of those things down. I might not feel the priority, and in all 5 of these things I might feel lighter about or great about, but the thing you feel greater about, you should be convicted with.
Yes.
And I think if you find yourself convicted in too many things, it just doesn't get done, where the commitment still has to be in place for the lighter things too, because we know that the lighter things or whatever that list may be were still important enough for you to write it down. You still find
It's
urgency of
there.
what that
It's
is.
there. Yeah.
Even even in the coaching, when I coach people, I say, come, don't write more than 3 things that you think you want to finish in a season.
Yeah. I mean,
And
look, it's what keeps you going. If you look at it in terms of New Year's resolution, for a lot of people, it's getting in shape, for example. And I would say to people all the time, when you work out, right, and you start having any result, that's like a benchmark. That's something
hmm
that can inspire you and get you revved up to keep going. So every little success you have. So if you succeed one of 3 things, focus on the successes, not on what you didn't succeed at.
oh
Right.
yeah,
I love that that idea of choose 3 things, not 10. Right.
that's it.
It sounds good. It feels good. But the reality is, if I choose one thing and I accomplish that one thing, then I'm a success that day. And I'm moving forward.
hmm Yeah.
If I accomplish one thing every day and I focus on the fact that I accomplished it
hmm
each day at 7 days, that means I accomplished 7 things that week.
That's right.
Holy moly, when you really think about it.
Yeah.
But if yeah,
It. I can't think of the name of the author that said it, but I heard several different authors. I don't know where it originated from. Focus on doing something good, and just 1% every day towards being to increase or improve. Just 1% a day. How much does that 1% add up to over 3 months? I mean, I know want the bigger picture and want to get good fast. In a microwave society
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
we happen to be in right now, instant gratification is king, right? But it shouldn't be. It should be delayed gratification, and loving kindness during the process. And you know me, and I'm always talking about that. The two words together: loving kindness and loving patience. Even if you practice those two 1% at a time, giving an hour to 30 minutes or 30 minutes to an hour or 20 minutes or even 10 minutes and see how that 10 minutes can compound over that. But it's no sense in rushing because we miss things. I've heard the plight of man is failing forward. I don't know if it's Shakespeare, one of these great, speakers, historians that's in place. But, if we know that we can and will make mistakes, then how much more would that happen if we're rushing through it, if we're not pacing ourselves? And so finding all these things. So it's is not, self mastery is not the idea that you end up mastering yourself. I think we change too much to actually own a full mastery of the human result of things. But what we can do is just build on from the fact of who we are becoming little by little and just be aware of how that makes us feel and how we move forward. And so even, the idea, even the 3 things, it's what's it called? The Eisenhower matrix. It's a way if people as a tool to use so you can help break down your schedule, your timing of the day, what you want, what you truly want, and what can support you immediately, and what things will support you later. And getting good at that will help you to do that. And so even talking about these 3 things, the first thing is the most urgent, right? Might not be the most important, So that's the conviction. Now, out of the three, if that's the top of your list, then the other two things are things that are commitments that you get to follow through on little by little, bit by bit, even if it falls through the cracks. You say you set a date, you want a book out. Maybe that's the second or the third thing. Maybe that's not the top priority. Top priority is to get speaking engagements or to build,
It's
you know,
interesting.
right, go ahead.
Let me just hop in here for a second
Yeah.
because the things that you're talking about and we're speaking about here are phenomenal and they're you know enlightening, especially for the person who knows what they want. Meaning, ask 10 people, "Do you know what you want?" And I don't mean in a group in a crowd because you put them on the spot. But you're out with somebody one on one, somebody and you ask them, "Do you know what you want?" Most people don't have an answer for that. So you can't. How do you structure your day or your goals around something if you don't really know what you want?
Well, I would say majority of people
Yeah,
will tell you
sure.
what they want, even if it's not exactly what they want. I mean, it takes so much exploration to
There
know
you go.
what
This is what
you
I'm trying to
want as
get
a
at right
person.
there. It's the exploration, right?
Yeah, the practice of the first way of knowledge is curiosity. You have to have this is one thing, even when we talk about commitments and conviction, the conviction that you should have is smaller convictions that help you to get to the number one thing that you feel like you want. If you have a list of three, the number one you want to feel the conviction, but you have to practice conviction over the little things as well.
That's the whole thing.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
the whole
And
thing.
so,
Yeah.
but those convictions don't come about or you don't raise your awareness around what that looks like if you're not asking the right questions. And the more that you ask it, it prepares your mind for solutions. Maybe they might not be even the answer that you want. Because a lot of us ask questions, we set ourselves in the wrong way. With questions that are not good questions or the right questions because the truth might sting or hurt too much.
Yeah.
We
Let's
don't wanna know those, we rather hide from those, but when we asking those questions to ourselves, we're almost preparing ourselves for that question to be asked outside of ourselves, and doesn't have to come from, Mark to ask that question. Life asks that question
every
without even
day,
speaking to us.
24 hours a day. Life is asking that question, right? Yeah. 24 hours a day, life is asking. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Yep.
Yeah, I hear you, go ahead.
Yep. Okay. So,
20 yeah, 24 hours a day.
you said something a minute ago about the little things. And I hopped in and said, yeah, well, that's like the whole thing. I want to throw an
Mhm,
analogy out there that, especially, how many people love, for example, sports, any type of athletics, or let's say UFC or anything like that. When you look at, let's say the UFC, two people, in combat. And we know there's a lot of beautiful, fancy moves out there jump, spinning, kicks, round, this, that, the other, backflips, you name it, right? And we grew up on the Channel 5 movies, right? So,
yeah,
okay. So, but you look at the vast majority of those competitions, right? The person that wins, probably 100% of the time, is always on the basics, the first thing they ever learned.
mhm,
A very basic hold, a very basic punch, a very basic move. Not an advanced movement, not a flamboyant thing. It was that
mhm.
one small thing that they trained at over and over and over, blood, sweat, and tears till the cows came home. And they mastered that one small, simple technique. And then I learned a lot of other techniques. They did the same thing, but it was the basics that got them over. It was the basics that helped them
Wipe
succeed.
on? Wipe off. I mean, it's back now, when you think about Karate Kid and the fame of it and
Yeah.
how it made, but it was just such people can connect with simplicity.
Simplicity is where it's at.
Simplicity, and that's what we're talking about also, in different ways, simplicity. When I first got to Italy, my first, I got there, I was in a new place. What's the most common thing that if you're trying to get from one place to another, what's the most common thing that you should do? And the answer is ask somebody. Ask somebody. Now, mind you, I did the same thing in any other place that I had been to before I even got to Europe. And maybe it's said in a different way, but people can point, people can gesture,
That's right.
if you don't, and what I found myself doing, and now I'm gonna actually make it to a story because I did it so much, especially until I started picking up keywords and things like that, or communicating to the old women and old men, senores and
Yeah.
senors that were there. But I would ask, but then I didn't just leave it to one person. Because if you're asking one person on how to get somewhere, you're not trying to get there really fast, are you? I mean, yeah, you have to do it with urgency,
You
right?
have to, yeah.
So with that, I came up with a method.
Okay, now, all right.
Soon as I did, I would ask up to 3 people. So, it would be 2 that says this way and 1 that says that way.
Okay.
Almost 90% of the time, if you can imagine. And I would go with the numbers on it. And even when I might have gotten to a halfway point or even whatever,
Hmm.
I still would do the same again. I would ask 3 more people. I wanted to triple my odds or 10x. Everybody's talking about 10x and what that looks like. We should be 10xing more than just trying to 10x our incomes.
Wow, you
Our
got to get
incomes
there.
won't come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your
You got to get
incomes,
there by doing what you're talking about now.
you're doing what I'm talking about, making the complicated simple. And I got to my destination every time. I got to my casting every time. I got to wherever I was going to stay, even if they changed apartments on me or whatever that is. And sometimes at dusk, arriving before it gets dark, before the vampires come out.
Yeah.
Whatever that looked like, I put a system around it, but it helped me to get, and then while I put that system in place, but what happened? Because it was easier for people to relate to me when I learned the language. So I participated in doing a thing that made me relatable, that help people trust
Feel
what I
comfortable
was
and safe
asking
around
them
you.
as a foreigner.
Yeah.
So I built two different qualities, two different characteristics up while I was doing something that helped me reinforce routines that helped me be successful the rest of my life up to now. People say, how'd you finish your book in less than 5 months? Well, that's because all that, the asking, not being afraid to ask, not being afraid to lean on other people, not being afraid to uh, feel a little bit, not as smart as I know myself to be, or all these idiosyncrasies, all these things that we hold on to versus letting go of. Those are the things that we're talking about.
So you said something, two things there. I mean, you said a lot more than two things, but two key things there, at least that jumped out at me. You said when you wanted to achieve something, and I'm paraphrasing this, you would create a system.
System.
Is you would first you decided on what you wanted, and then you would create the system. And then when you're talking about don't be afraid to ask, and then you're talking about humility, not humiliation,
Hmm.
humility, right?
Right.
The ability, don't be afraid to worry about what somebody is thinking about your question. No such thing as a stupid question. Why would you be embarrassed? You don't know the answer, right?
Mm.
And you need the answer. Well, how do you get the answer? You ask, right? So creating a system, that's pretty powerful because you know what you want. Then the question is, how do I get it? Most people would say, well, I know what I want, but it requires money. And without the money, I can't get what I want. So what am I supposed to do?
Hmm.
You didn't say anything. This whole conversation so far, you haven't said one thing about money. You became a successful model. It didn't happen because you got money first. You wrote a book, which we got to get into in a second. It wasn't because you had the money first. You didn't get a signing bonus, did you?
Nothing that we ever do starts off with money.
All right. So, but you still
We're born
succeeded.
into this life
Yeah.
willingly
We're
or
born.
against our will. We don't know. Only God knows.
So, yeah,
We,
yeah, yeah.
but we should, but we're here nevertheless
Yeah, man.
until we can figure it out for ourselves or not figure it out, be okay with not figuring it out. It's Harry Truman, great, president, you know, he has a saying that not all questions can be answered, but they can be decided. And it really comes down again when we talk about that word again for conviction, which, like I said, I like to keep around commitments and convictions. Commitment to myself is that I'm going to do my best. The conviction is acting in that. I think the conviction is more of the
You got it.
action of what that is versus the commitment, which is the promise to ourselves. And only with both
But you kind
will
of
we
have to,
kind of step
this is the
through it.
thing. I'll tell you why I love the word conviction. Maybe I've said this to you before. I'm sure I have. The reason why I love the word conviction so much, it really is, it's another word for faith. Except sometimes hearing the word conviction can maybe make it sink in a little bit more because a lot of people think that faith, the ideas around faith are all over the place.
Mhm.
So you have to know before you do it. If I'm going to draw a picture or do a painting, or if I'm going to build a building or start a business, I have to already know. It already has to be a part of me. I already have to, you know, I, I'm going to draw a picture today. I'm going to take out a pen and paper, pencil and paper, and I'm going to do a portrait. I don't have the portrait before I have it,
Mhm.
but actually I do because I've decided I'm going to do it. I'm not going to put the pencil to paper unless I know I'm going to be able to do this thing. So I already have to. So in other words, it's kind of like conviction means you've already created it. It's already done. It's there already. You just got to now commit to that conviction. Believe it. Don't trust it.
Believe me.
Trust it. Don't let, like you just said, you would throw yourself out to the wolves. Tell everybody and let them, because you wanted that fire, right?
Yeah,
Underneath you, right?
100%.
Right.
Yeah. Don't buy into the fact that you just because you know less than somebody that you know less. And knowing is a powerful thing. When you know, a lot of times knowing can feel like it can come off to maybe some as egotistical or pompous. But for as many things as we think that we know, is more that's just not so. And we have to realize in these pockets of discovery, the word like we talked about before, humbling ourselves, being in a place where we're okay and we are not hard on ourselves except for to get the answer. That's the repetition of what that is. And he's like you said, it all adds up to systems. But you tell somebody a system, they don't understand. So we're breaking down
That
what the
looks like.
system is. Systems that are in place have to be tried and true before they solidify.
But I also think that the system has to be, it's not one system. It's created based on that person themselves. Inside them. In other words, this is what I mean by system. In terms of individual, right? An individual system. When I was in high school, I graduated early, right? Because I learned when I was in high school that I had a right to see my transcript anytime I want, and that I had a right to choose my own classes. So,
Mhm.
typical teenager, I started picking all the classes I wanted to take, and then I left all the math classes to the to the last semester when I wanted to graduate. So every class from the morning to the afternoon was a different math class, right? We're talking about every kind of algebra, trigonometry, geometry, and calculus, all every day, 5 days a week for a semester. So I was freaking out like, Mark, you big, like stupid, right? So I'm in class one day, and the teacher, and we called them by their first names in the school, and her name was Rita. And I said, Rita, one day, first day of class, I think it was trigonometry. I can't remember which one, geometry or trigonometry. Math. To me, at that point, they all like kind of meshed together, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm in trouble. So she goes, all right. She says, she told the class, look at the room, this classroom. How many feet between one end of the room to the other end of the room? And, I think it was something like, everybody said like 30 feet. And then she said, well, what's half the distance of 30 feet? 15. What's half the distance of that? What's half the distance of that? What's half the distance of that? And then she said, keep going. And she just watched us. She said, keep going, keep going, keep going. And so we're like, okay, well, there's no half the distance between 2 and 1. Yes, there is, right? She said, so theoretically speaking, if I took a bow and arrow and shot the arrow from one end of the room to the other end of the room, the arrow should never make it there because of the theory or the concept of infinity.
Mm.
It should never make it there because it has to go half the distance and half the distance of that. It has to go an infinite number of half distances before it gets there, so it should never really get there. So my eyes went boing. I woke up. I'm like, I can do this, right? And so I got all excited. And then I said, all right. So talk to me, Rita. I was just like, I was alert.
Talk to me.
And I said, all right, so look. And I said, so Rita, look, I got every class, and I had 3 classes with her every day. I said, so look, I gotta pass these classes. I'm not a dummy, but my God, I got you all day long. How am I gonna pass? She said, it's simple. You need to understand the formula for each subject matter that we're talking about. And once you've mastered the formula, right? Once you've mastered that, then it doesn't matter what problem I throw at you. You figure it out because you go back to the formula, that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
My system, if you will, for me, started with the fact that because I trained martial arts at that time, was coming through, the idea of the bow and arrow, the arrow not reaching to the other end of the room, right? And that's math. It's supposed to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe it's not perfect, or maybe it is. It was like one of those questions that don't have an answer. So you can
Yeah.
meditate on.
Yeah.
So it started there, and I got into the
You were a monk. You were a monk before you even
well, I got into
philosophy,
yeah.
because it steps into philosophy on a
Yeah, I
lot
got
of
into the
levels. That's where they
philosophy
pull it
of
from.
math, right? And this philosophy of math turned me on so much that it made me want to look for the formulas. So what I
Mm-hmm.
meant by there is a system, there's something before the system that inspires that person so much that they can actually see it, the system, to be able to apply it, right? And I guess why I'm bringing that up is because we're talking about some great stuff. And if you've already found yourself, well, not only are we speaking to the choir, but we're also edifying each other because we've already found ourselves, if you will. For the
Fast forward.
yeah,
Let me just give you an example, if I may. Just I know we have more to interview. I took on the same thing when I decided that I wanted to speak. I wanted to get good with being on camera, and I saw again the bigger picture. Here it goes again. Cortez, burn your boats. Right. I dived headfirst into it. By one of the things I said, if I'm going to be on podcasts, if I'm going to be on TV, if I'm going to be in front of audiences one day or soon, I have to get really good at getting comfortable being in front of people. I had to get good at pacing myself, putting myself on display for whether it's compliment or criticism in a way that helped me get stronger in how I'm going to have to give this forward in the future. Meaning you can't teach anything you don't have. And the people who do are hypocrites.
well, they're not teaching. Yeah,
And
you're right.
right. And so I had to go through this. What I would suggest to somebody else, I had to take my own advice. I had to take my teaspoon of castor oil because I know that is going to keep me healthy. Well, that's old school. So if anybody knows what
Castor
that
oil,
teaspoon tastes
milk of
like,
magnesia.
what that is,
Yeah,
and that's just, it's the preparation, right? It's the healing before you need it. So you have this buildup or whatever, what that is, and it was terrible in your mouth, but a lot of people were getting less sick about the regular things that people are getting sick for right now. So it's some tried and true in philosophy of how you're going to move forward. And when you're dealing with especially people, and just because I'm a speaker, coach, or trainer, or whatever that looks like, we all have to get good at dealing with people. Everything that we are doing is not in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And,
Amen.
and
Yeah.
so people say, well, I don't want to do that, or I don't like to do that, or I don't like social media. Well, social media is just the fastest way right now. I mean, we, the people of Gen X,
People are afraid to
and before
speak.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, we knew how.
People are afraid to speak
Yo,
publicly.
Les Brown used to talk about, him being in breweries, just to speak. He'd just get up in front of
Yeah.
people and say, let me give a dedication to your greatness. And people half drunk, oh, sit down,
Yeah.
and all this
Yeah.
type of stuff. You have to do something. And again, it's just in systems.
Yeah.
Because systems without that conviction, first is a commitment, but I think it could turn into a conviction, but it should always get to a place where it's a conviction, right? And that's what we're talking about. So I had to get good, and I end up doing almost upward of 75 different Instagram, IG lives when they first started, because
Yeah.
we were locked away. I couldn't
You
do it
say
in
locked away.
person.
You mean during COVID?
During COVID, we all had
Yeah.
orange or yellow jumpsuits on
Yeah.
at that
During
time,
COVID. Yeah. We were
trying to
all,
fi yeah, we were yeah, so the but over the course of a year or a year and a half, I pushed my way through, and I did it the hard way. I had conviction to what that was, so I was doing interviews with people that I met and knew that really supported me or are empowering or up to something like you from around the world that I had met, and a lot of them you met. I just all I did at that time because, well, they didn't have a lot going on at that time, because they couldn't leave the houses either, and they agreed, and I was doing 3 or 4 of these up to an hour conversation, bumbling and stumbling, and unfortunately, I had a hack into my, my and all those IGs. They're not lost, they're still there.
yeah.
If anybody ever wants to know what those are, you can always go back to them, but I was gonna leave them up anyway because I knew that people get to see the evolution of conviction.
No, you got to leave it up there. That's right. That's right.
People get to see how much I stuttered, how much I couldn't get my train of thought together, how much practice that I had to put in, the books that I had to go through reading that I was mentioning a lot because I wanted to make sure that people understood that there's these steps turn into your system. Now, there's no such thing as a perfect system because we're imperfectly perfect. Yeah, I have a T-shirt that says it. I walk around and we're perfectly imperfect and imperfectly perfect. Like both one and the same. So and so humans change, societies change, systems change, or they have to keep up with the modern advancements that are going to be imprinted in our
Systems
society.
change, but there's certain foundational things that stay the same. If you can build
Right.
off a foundation, and then as things change, you're able to adapt because you have a foundation, right?
That's right. That system is the plan B and plan C again. Don't make the plan B and a plan C the plan A. That's the biggest kind of takeaway that, I can give to anybody at this point. A is the permanent and B and C are the ones that should be how you accomplish plan A. It should reinforce the
So
A.
B and C really are the adaptations you make when things don't go
Hmm.
according to plan or in the
Yeah.
time that you expected. What that really
Yeah.
means is you're adapting, you're adjusting, and you're reacting, and you're staying on target, if you will. You're still
Hmm.
staying committed to what you're doing. It just means that, maybe it's a setback. Maybe you're taking 2 steps back to take a step forward. Maybe, you're up a little pause, but it's happening anyway. So does that make sense? Relative to C and B and C?
I always let people, and you said, and we'll talk more into it because that word pause is very empowering when we are at a place where we make ourselves stand still and wait for the things. that are meant for us in the process. So pausing doesn't mean that you're not that you're not emotional, but understanding that the result doesn't have to be the expectation. It doesn't have to render us feeling lost
Pausing can
or
also just mean
uneven.
pausing can mean
Yeah,
allowing,
allowing.
you know?
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
It's about staying in a place of allowing what that work that you put in, whether it's hard
absolutely.
work or whether it's smart work, comes to fruition. And you have to be in that place where you just allow what that is, And I think the best way, to get that to that allowing is just I've mentioned this in another talk, is just trusting yourself, like you said, self-belief and disciplining our emotions where they just are not running rampant. Find that place where we can be lovingly patient with ourselves in that process. Process are the grinder that makes the wheel go round. You might have systems, but without the process, the system won't be functional for long. So you have to have adaptation along with that,
Yeah,
right? You have to be able to creatively find, like I said, the innovative understanding of yourself and zigzag through the course, even if you thought the course was just supposed to be straight.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
so the adaptate, I'm having a word even spitting that out, but the adaptation.
Adaptation.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Is a cloak in a on a super character, I mean, I think of Doctor Strange, his
Oh, yeah.
cloak helped him out with everything. Building and it helped him because if he was fighting somebody, the cape will come and help him, right? Like he, you know, the goal was in place and we just have to bring the magic to where we feel that we are lacking and sometimes and that self-belief creates that. It does.
Let's trigger. You just
Yeah.
triggered it. Self belief. You wrote a book, 11 Pillars
Yeah.
of Confidence. I'm just going
Yeah.
to take a quick look at this because I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to the Barnes and Nobles section over here. All right,
Woo
is this
woo.
thing visible over here? You got it. All right.
Yeah.
So here we go. 11 Pillars of Confidence. This is written by Arthur Rutledge and lead to empower to an empowered you. So talk a little bit about your book, 11 Pillars of Confidence. What inspired you to write it? When did you start doing it? And just give us a summary of what it is, because it sounds like to me, everything that we've been discussing kind of is like a prelude to this amazing bestseller.
Yeah. The processes that we talk about that's in place, or we can even say the disciplines that you make for yourself before the thing. Like this is the thing, this is the result. But the discipline that I had to put in place was all those little steps that added up to me being capable to see myself capable as a person that could give leadership, that could give good advice, or to at least, and actually to the most, just connect with people from where they're at and let them know I've been there. I've done these things. And through the good, the bad, and the ugly, these are all pieces that makes us whole. And this is one book and several more to come.
But before you do that, let's just
But it only started because of the practice of stepping into myself and trusting myself. So that's where the side of it. Now, that's the short version. The long version is kind of the short version. When I understood that I was being authentic to myself, when I was showing up for myself in integrity, my excellence, it reinforced the knowledge that my voice is valid. And because I was able to establish that, I was able to speak from a place of humbleness, of trust, and of frequency, making sure I'm giving as much as I can in the space that I have on that side of it. And all the other characteristics that formed out what I will be able to give to the person that's across from me, the person that is going to look in the mirror every morning and establish whether they deserve something or not, or whether they get to have something or not, or get to recognize their own potential or power just by what they're up to every day. And when I did that, I set the goal. I said, I'm at a place where I understand that this gets to be in place for those individuals. I've lived a lot of lives. I tell people, you know, and well, in a year and well, I was going to say in a year and a half, and a year and a half later, after a year of playing around with the book, 4 months, 4.5 months getting it done.
You said a year and a half of playing around with the book. What does that mean?
So we all been there. Procrastination, it
Okay.
can be the friend for us.
Just want to hear it out loud.
Mel Robbins talks in one of her books about good, but she didn't know, and a lot of people know, is some types pausing sometimes is a good procrastination. Most of us are into the bad side of procrastination, the unproductive side of procrastination, which lends from fear. Productive side of it is no stopping and going, but you're still in the process. You just let sometimes you go zoom faster than the process. Sometimes the process, because it's so powerful and because of certain actions you might do, might be a little bit faster than you. Well, you have to make sure that you're catching up to it. So you might have the ideas. You might have wrote them. You might have wrote them down. You might
A
have
good
taken
example of
notes.
that, if I might,
Yeah,
a
please.
good example of that, and I'll use working out. Right, I used to be a trainer years ago, and I would have clients come in who had a very definite, specific goal, and they were fired up, and they showed up to every workout. They ate properly, did everything right, and they would come in to train, and they want to come in every day because they have this goal. And I would show up to the gym, and I would tell them, "Listen, tomorrow's your off day. I don't want to see you." And they would show up. I would say, "Get out of here. Go home." No, but no, go home.
They don't.
They come by the next day because they needed to rest. I needed them away from the gym for like 2, 3 days, sometimes 3 full days, sometimes longer, depending on the type of workout that we did. And sometimes I have them wait like 4 days and then come back and we train again. But when they come back stronger, faster, all those things, right? And their body will have changed. And they're like, what? I didn't really do that much.
Mhm.
You gave your body time to heal and to get stronger so that you can come back stronger so that your body can adapt. So sitting back, pausing, resting for a little while, that pause or that good procrastination that you call it, is allowing for what you've been fighting for, allowing it to come through. Our imaginations, our visualization is already there.
Mhm.
And we step on ourselves. We trip over our own shoelaces trying to get to a goal that's already been set if you just sit back for a day or two sometimes.
Yeah, it's my Italian friend Nico. You remember him?
I remember the name. Yeah.
Another brother from another mother. He had this. It's an Italian proverb that says, "Be a pig, not a hog."
Yes.
And I knew instantly what he was talking
Yeah, of
about. I mean,
course.
and we do it all the time. We can stifle our own progression by overdoing the things that overdoing the necessary things. It is a certain amount of what you can fit in your mouth, is a certain amount that what you can carry at a time. None of us are walking around the streets with a truck in our hand.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
try though. We
Unless it's
try.
Tonka, right?
Yeah, Tonka. Oh my God. We just you're dating dating us big time. No, nobody knows what a Tonka truck
Unless it's the
is.
Tonka truck. Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to circle back to your book for a second because the title 11 Pillars. Is there a particular reason why you chose 11 pillars as opposed to any other number that just come to you or?
And I use in that process where I was doing the productive procrastination, meaning delayed gratification and seeing the big, but holding on to the bigger picture. The subtitle "Build and Lead and Empowered You" only happened only maybe like a few days before it went to print.
Okay.
I had another
Interesting.
title. Yeah, I had another subtitle. I can't even remember what the other subtitle was, but this one hit me. I was reading an article after Colonel Lima wrote her book Worthy, and it was an article on her, and I saw something that kind of nudged something, and I said, yeah, this is something, and it just came to me, and trusting those moments, but I thought the subtitle was fine. But I'm just saying this in a smaller way, saying over the course of like 11, 13 months, I was telling people that I'm going to do a book. I was writing down things. I was writing a quote down. I'd already started writing quotes down because not that I thought that I was going to become an author from it, but I just had these things in my mind. And I thought, if I want to get good at writing, and keeping things in my head, I had to, even for, for
Yeah.
repetition
Yeah.
purposes, just for recording and holding on to what resonated with me and being in contact with that curiosity that I talked about before, that practice of strengthening my questions, strengthening those questions so I can give stronger answers or at least find some solutions that work for me at that time. Because again, answers can change. Not everything stays the same from one question to another because we're always changing. So our answer about things probably do change. And you can just, that works for everybody.
You sound like a
But in
writer,
that,
by the way.
yeah, about 12. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Well, thanks. I'm in the right profession. But it worked. It worked out over that 13, 14 months. While I was doing that, I was still on the fence. I was still on the fence, even though I had made my declaration. I made my commitment. We could just say commitment to follow through on what that was. That's the great thing about conviction, right? I had told in accountability. I set myself up to win or flop. I knew people. I was telling people enough where they were experts in things. They had their PhD, which I do not think, in these, all these things or multiple degrees and everything, where I could have been intimidated about around what that looked like with them. But I took always, and I always still take the higher road. That's where the confidence came in. The idea that I don't have to see it around me to see it in me. And the trust only should come from the people who believe in you until you believe in yourself. And when I first heard that particular part from, other gurus of personal development and self-help, I realized if they went through it, then that's what I'm going to have to go through. So I recognized a lot of what that looked like and I put it into the space. And then going through the Unshakable Character by Jim Rohn, which is an awesome please for anybody that wants the best of Jim Rohn or to feel that what that can look like for them out. And it was the second time that I went through the book because I believe in multiple times. Again, our answers can change, but our questions do change for ourselves as we continue to develop. And I remember hearing some key things in that. And then I went to sleep and I just was overcome by the Holy Spirit, for whatever that looks like for anybody. I was just in prayer and I was just inspired, not just by the book, but also as time and I recognized the voice, the divineness of the voice that put me on a pace to say, okay, start now. Do it now. And this incredible pause, this is stand stillness that I had embraced, allowing what I all the uh, aptitude of what I was up to lead to my altitude. Put me in a place where I said I'm going to start the beginning of the year, and after I got that week, that week later after New Year's, I had yeah, stepped into I made I programmed my success. I programmed it so the first week I said every week I'm going to write another chapter. And the first to answer your question going back to all this beautiful rhetoric that I'm giving to get to the point. It started off with just being 9 pillars of belief. And I thought that was all that I thought that was I liked the number, for just superficial reasons, nothing really deeply assertive about what that is. But because I was embracing myself during the journey and I was building that trace, I was building that belief from chapter to chapter. I couldn't believe I would sit down and I would sit there and I would not move until I got that chapter finished. And rough draft or not, I would go through definitions and I was going through, a lot of some of the notes I had and some of the book things and relating to myself and embracing how I was relating to myself, which a lot of people don't do. So they get really lost. They can get tossed around and slow down or feel like they're stagnant in their creativity. I just embraced it as it was, but I made myself sit there. And if I think, every time I did that, it would be anywhere from 9 to 12 hours that I would just be there nonstop. I would do it in the middle of the night when it was the most silent. And I took on myself. And when I got slowed up, took some water, I prayed on it, tried to come from a different direction. Uh, but go through some of my quotes that led me up to that point, whatever that looked like. And then by time I got to it, every week I did that, I got to 9, and then I looked in my notes and saw that I had 3 more chapters that I had wrote a title for and wrote and I forgot
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah,
almost, well, they kinda just out of sight, out of mind, and I was
yeah.
just focusing on what I was focused on, and this is the important part, where adjustment comes in, and when you really just get into a flow and you just know that you have this that you can give to the world, and why not make it the strongest it can be? And I looked at the 3 and I said, "Yeah, is in my something that says I have 2 more chapters in me." I like the idea of 11. Is they stand themselves as pillars, and 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 then I just and I still had the introduction, which, is no rhyme or reason. A lot of people say, introduction is the great way to go, or that epilogue is a great way to go. I don't believe in that. I think when you're fully invested, when you're in your conviction and in your and you have the the strong enough belief in what you want, the what you want to give as a servant leader or whatever that looks like in the world, whether you feel like you're a leader or you're not. I think that, it's that fire just doesn't stop in your belly. It's just already and it's already just fully ignited because I just got so much of it done. Now, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people who have not finished that last chapter. They've finished a whole book, and I haven't gotten to that point where they did the last chapter. But
There's a
it
fear
was
there.
something. Is something of a resistance that has not been addressed. The best book I've ever heard on resistance is from Stephen Pressfield, called The War of Art. I know a lot of people have heard The Art of War. This is not it.
Yeah.
This is the reverse of it, The War of Art. And it talks into self-sabotage and resistance and the many ways that can hide itself while in the fibers of what you're up to when you're not addressing who you are and what truly is authentic to you enough.
By the way, the concept you're discussing is in the Art of War as well.
Well, I've gone through it, but I haven't kept a lot of notes
Yeah.
on the Art of War. But it's 2 more, and I knocked it out, and I knocked out the other one, and that just took me another one. I think 1 week. I knocked out the 2, and then I did the introduction and decided from that point how I was going to structure with my editor's help, how I was going to structure what that looked like. But, again, I knocked this out in less than 5 months, 4.5 months, where it was a year and 2 months. I use the word playing around with, I mean, loosely. It was no playing around in our heads without the discipline. of knowing the lightness of that phrase, we could put it to the side and never pick it back up.
Well, that's usually what happens, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
that's
and
usually
that's
the
what's usually
case?
what happens. So the conviction needs to be the conviction. That's how I knew it was a conviction. The commitment needs to, you need to, be able to
Yeah, I like that. I like.
own your integrity enough and understand. Like I said, through this process, I could have been really hard on myself.
Well,
I could have been
let me
like,
just jump on something you just
I
said.
should have did this. I did this.
Well, let me just
Or
jump
you go
on
ahead,
something you just said
please.
about getting finishing, because that's really what you're talking about, finishing. You know, you can't do, if you think about gymnastics, a back
Hmm.
handspring, a backflip, you can't do 80 or 90% of a backflip. Once you go backwards, once you commit, you got to go. Because if you don't complete what you started,
Hmm.
what's going to happen? You get hurt, right?
That's right. Yes.
You can't kind of do a backflip. If you're going to do it, you got to do it. You can't kind of, you're walking down the street with somebody, and you've been there. I've done it. You've probably done it. You're crossing the street. It's a busy street. Cars are going back and forth pretty fast. You're not paying attention across the street, and then you see cars coming, and you stutter back and forth. And you don't make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And in a situation like that, you either got to stop or you got to go.
Hmm.
Anything in between, trouble, right? You got to commit. And so you got to commit and you got to finish, because the alternative to not finishing is similar to the alternative to, metaphorically speaking, not finishing your backflip, landing on your head, cracking your neck or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So we know that people get 80, 90% of the way. They start celebrating, and then they don't really commit to finishing,
Yeah. Good.
getting it
I mean, the
done.
celebrations. I mean, it always gets to be. I think in between those, I think you always get to do small celebrations, but it should never come to it never should come to a place where just because you feel that you're exhausted or it's a lot more than you thought you should take on, that you should just eject.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you were just talking, I was thinking about the great Atari game Frogger. That's the first time we saw what that looked like. And I don't, for those who are not familiar with Frogger or have seen it, is a frog that is going across traffic to get the
That's
other
right.
side,
That's right. Yeah,
and is up to you. You got to go sideways, upways around traffic, and it goes faster and faster until it hits this frog. Think it's easier for a person to walk down the middle of a road and say they got halfway across the road, but because they feel safe, you have
well,
the
yeah, yeah, of
the
course.
white line or the yellow line in the middle of the road, and you could just stay in that place forever, where you got enough finish where you feel accomplished,
So now,
you know,
we have a
but you're not enough to,
yeah.
just follow through on what you said and bring it to fruition.
So we have a few minutes left. I want to just go over a couple of things I want to show, because, as we mentioned, you're an author, best-selling author. You're a speaker. You're a coach. You have another thing. I guess, a company, a website, Vertical Mindset Group, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing around my book and a lot of my accomplishments, things of that nature. I have a new speaker and coach website with some of my books that's going to be involved
Yes, that's
with
coming
that
out.
as well, coming very soon.
That's coming soon.
And the new book, which is going to be awesome, that's coming out very soon, book anthology
Yes,
that's centered around me and 25 individuals
I think I'm a part of
that
that,
are
aren't I?
talking from the stage. And I was going to say, and yours truly, that's on here with me, Mark R. Moore, is definitely involved with that. Everybody's put a bit of themselves into a place of belief, which is that's what it's called, the pillars of belief, where endurance and love and leadership and or uh, elements of encouragement uh, or integrity or even one of the biggest things that was needed for belief is faith, is implemented by all these beautiful souls that are creating legacy by way of this. So I'm very excited that the pillars of belief is going to be online near you, and we're going to be doing some tour around it and some traveling, and have something in Arizona and in Texas and Florida, and all these great places in
Gonna have some
Detroit where
fun.
I'm
Gonna have a good
from.
time with it.
And we're going to have some fun coming into 2026, May, for all of us to just embrace and finish what we started. If you started this year, you have the rest of this year. I can't think of a better New Year's resolution than not a resolution, but a conviction. New Year's conviction. If it's that important to you, if you're saying it to yourself, look in the mirror, repeat it to yourself every morning. This is important to me. I'm going to knock it out. I'm going to get it done. And do it 50 times when you wake up and 50 times before you go to sleep, and put it on your heart to get it done. If you can do that before, with the last of the 2 months that we have in this space, how much more will you be encouraged to create that type of finality with everything that you're up to coming into the new year?
Listen, man, that was phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to it myself. I'm excited, fired up every morning myself. So this has been a amazing session episode. Thank you, Arthur, for joining us. Everyone, the Arthur's book, 11 Pillars of Confidence, will be in the description of this video, along with, there we go. That's right. Show those shiny teeth. All right. And we're also going to have his website, Vertical Mindset Group. It's going to also be in the description, along with ways to connect with him. So definitely pick up a copy of his book, and others will follow. Along with that, we're also doing a monthly series that he has, the author, Thirsty Thursdays author and speaker series. I'm proud to say I'm be joining with him in the flesh tomorrow with a bunch of other amazing people, doers, innovators, to discuss and share some pretty powerful things. So I just want to thank you, Arthur, for joining us today.
I'm happy to, and I wanted to
Yeah,
add one more thing.
absolutely.
I just want to show, this is, this is a picture,
Yep, leave it there for a second.
of me first stepping into
Yep,
the model profession, me and a friend of mine at that time.
Wow, look
That
at
was
that.
the first step. It wasn't, the other thing I'll say is that this book was dedicated, my first book, 11 Pillars of Confidence, Build and Lead and Empowers You, was dedicated to my mother, who I buried, who, if you read the book, you'll know that I got a lot of these things and characteristics from that type of mentorship. Mark, he won't, he'll say in other times, but his mother was his greatest mentor, and what that is, whatever it takes to find your why,
Yeah.
to get it done, that was mine. I said, listen, I have this picture in front of me. Chase your cat, jump up and down, like put your mother's picture or somebody important to your picture and say, this is something that that you give a dedication to. Because a lot of times we'll do a lot more for other people than we'll even do for ourselves until, again, we establish that in ourselves. So that's just some final things that I wanted to, to share in this space.
Yeah, man.
But whatever it is, get it done.
And hey, everyone,
I can on my
that's
chest.
right. And everyone,
Yes, you can.
just want to do a quick note. Arthur is also a proud member of Spartan Cafe. And so if you sign up to Spartan Cafe, as I hope you do, and this is what this podcast is all about, you'll be able to join him here on our website and connect with him directly. And through here, you'll also be able to purchase his books, talk with him, DM him, and a host of other things. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And when we talk a little bit more about that, he also posts a lot on here and shares a lot of his thoughts and his wisdom. And along with his wisdom, he shares a lot of discernment. So again, thank you for joining me here. I've been wanting you here from the time we started, but you're here now. And by the way, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, it's on. The speaker and author series showcases all these great people, but it is there as a beautiful circle, a circle of life. People they get something out of what they hear, and then them being there helps the speaker and the author to thrive as well. So thirsty to thrive. is there for each and every one of you guys every first Thursday of the month in New York City, and as it builds out across the nation.
And I'll put that information in the description as well. All right. Well, with that, we'll call it a night. And thanks again, Art, for joining. And yes, I can. Outstanding, brother. All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.